The very first section at the top, I would like you to fill in a blank for me in the very top line up there. This next section is called All Eyes Are on the Leader. Again, this is not about hospitality training from here forward for the next 2 hours. This is simply about what can we in this room do to tweak just a little bit some of the things that we do to change our employees' perception about us. The very first line on the top is, you are the conductor. Please fill in the words, conductor. Employees will follow your tempo, whether you like it or not. And I'll repeat the last 2 words, or not, because that will happen. I would just like you to envision that when you come into your restaurant, the employees begin looking at you the minute you hit the door. They're watching you because they're looking for a tempo. If you take your baton and you move this slow, they will also move that slow. You speed it up, they will speed up. They are watching your every move, whether you want them to or not. And that is the key. They'll also pick up the things that you don't want them to pick up. The first time I found out about how much power I had in this particular area, I used to work in retail for about 12 years, retail management, and I managed a clothing store up in the Seattle area. It was during the jean boom in the 70s when Britannia jeans, and just any jean you put on a table would fly out the door. We had a theory in retail, stack them high and watch them fly. So at the mall that I worked in, it was about 15 minutes before opening, we had about 10 cases of jeans to get stacked up on these tables. And I had 2 stock people that I asked to go do it. Well, I watched them as they were putting the jeans out, and they were putting them out at about this pace, and they were talking to each other, which is fine, but I knew at the pace they were going, they were never going to get it out on time. So I stepped out, came up to the front of the store, and I said, let me give you a hand. Cracked open a box, and I kept talking right with them, but I was working at about twice the pace they were. I never said a word. But immediately, they began working at the exact same pace as me. It was the very first time, this is almost 25 years ago, that I realized the power that I had to set the tempo for the people around me with the unspoken word, simply by doing it. About 15 years ago, when I started one of my businesses up 15 years ago, a different company, I had about 10 employees. And I used to get my postage stamps at the post office like most of us and lick them and put them on the bills that I would send out. So that's how I truly handled most of my mail. Well, I went over to a friend of mine who he owned a business that was much larger than mine, and I was sitting there talking to him, but I noticed his secretary was over there, and she had this machine in front of her. It was sweetness. You put a piece of mail in there, you go ka-ching, you put a ka-ching stamp on it, and it was sweet. I said, well, if you're going to have a professional business, Brad, you've got to have one of these machines. So I went to Pitney Bowes, and I leased myself a ka-ching machine. Brought it back to my office. I put my mail in there. Ka-ching! It was beautiful. And I put it inside my mail slot. Working fabulous. I started to notice, however, that it was working so good, and I was having a tough time at home, so I started bringing my mail and my bills from home and putting them in my ka-ching machine and putting my mail in the mail slot to go out. I noticed a few weeks later, I started noticing a few of my employees' mail from home showing up with my ka-ching thing on it inside the box. Not a big deal. It's only a few pieces of mail. But I got to tell you, after about 4 months, it was near Christmas, and I'm telling you, ka-ching, 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 Christmas cards like this thick inside my thing. I brought my employees out. I sat them down. I said, what are you thinking? And they said, you do it. I said, but I own the place. They said, we don't care. So where'd that come from? You obviously do not understand the great food chain. I am the owner. I get privileges that you do not. And you look at me kind of like, no. It happened even a year after that. My wife was pregnant. It was probably 8 weeks before she's due. I'm calling home probably 6 or 8 times a day because I want to make sure nothing fell out that I'm unaware of. So I'm calling a lot. I admit to it. But all of a sudden, after about a week or two, I noticed I all of a sudden couldn't get a line out myself. So I started walking down the hall, looking in the offices. The employees all got their feet on the desk, talking to family and friends. I brought them back out again. I sat them down. I said, what are you doing? And they said, you do it. And I said, but my wife's pregnant. They said, we had nothing to do with that. And that was really good news. But it just reinforced to me. I still, to this day, Do not, you ought to see the Pitney Bowes machine I got now, man. 350 horsepower. It is a big, mean machine. But I do not bring my personal mail and run it to the machine because I know I can't stop my employees from doing it. They'll do it. And on personal phone calls, I still do not make personal phone calls. I've got 35 full-time employees. I do not make personal phone calls. And if I do have to sneak one in, I close my door. I'm that cautious about it. Setting the example. I got it reinforced to me again probably about 6 months ago. I had some shoes. I bought them at Nordstrom's. They were kind of like wearing on me a little bit. They were brand new. So I got into my office, kicked my shoes off under my desk. I was relaxed. I needed some water in my water bottle because I drink a lot of water. Walked all the way down the hallway, past the cubicles, past the office, went to the kitchen, filled the water up, came back, sat at my desk. Wasn't even 15 minutes. My vice president and general manager walks in the door and looks under my desk like that and says, I knew it. I said, what? She goes, come here. Took me out in the hallway and pointed down the hallway. Half a dozen people had their shoes off already, walking around the office. You can't win. I'm just telling you that if you want these employees to smile when they are at work, you better be smiling too. If you expect them to use the customer's name when they know the customer, you better start using their name a lot. Exaggerate. Everything that you want them to do, make sure they see it tenfold from you as well. The next word I'd like you to fill in, the next blank down, is the word authenticity. Authenticity. If you don't know how to spell it, just draw it. The employees won't believe the message if they don't believe the messenger. This is very simple. If you are going to waste your employees' time by sitting down and trying to coach them on these issues, you're going to go back, see tomorrow, you're going to get all fired up about some of this stuff, you're going to want to coach them. If you're going to sit them down in a meeting and you're going to talk to them, do not waste their time by looking at them and going, yeah, that Brad guy, he says we got to get better at the service thing, so let's get all over that. Make sure whenever you sit the employees down and you're coaching them that they hear that passion in your voice, that they see it in your eyes. Otherwise, they will not subscribe to it. And walking the walk and talking the talk. It's what I just talked about. The next one down to fill in is the word focus. Focus. And there's no K in that for those who are spelling impaired. See, visionary leaders, they broadcast a few key messages and they focus the employees' energy. The key message, you can decide what you want it to be. Now, the key message should be is that we are going to learn to exceed everybody's expectations. When they walk through that door, we're going to find a way to wow them. Or it could be, we're going to start treating people the way we personally would like to be treated. I don't care what your message is, as long as they have a very clear message about the culture of your restaurant. On top of that, if you're going to coach them into some new behavior changes, let's say you've got 5 things that you want them to do with every single customer. You've got these things picked out and you say these are non-negotiable, we're going to do them. If you try to give them all 5 in one day and say, here, do these, start them now. It's just like going on a weight loss program. You try to lose 5 pounds in 1 week, you're going to have 10 pounds come back the next week. It just doesn't work as sweet as that. I will ask you that if you're going to coach people, is take one item at a time and have them focus on that one item for about 2 weeks. Don't get them all confused with everything else. 2 weeks, let's focus on that. Get it really ingrained in their system 100% of the time. Then after that, say we're going to continue to do this, but we're going to add a new thing. And you work on that for the next 2 weeks. Basically, it might take you 10 weeks. And that might seem like too long. Some of you are saying, that's way too long. But you know what? It sticks. That's what it takes to create a culture, not just a quick program that might go away. The next line down I'd like you to fill in is the word positive attitude. Positive attitude. It's the kind of attitude that says, hey, I'm going after Moby Dick and I'm going to take tartar sauce. That is a positive attitude. The employees need to look at you to know that this stuff can happen. When you set up non-negotiable standards for them, they need to see in your eyes that this is not rocket science. This is about our attitudes. This is not aptitude. This does not require a college education. This can be done. The next line down is the word synergy, and that is S-Y-N-ergy. S-Y-N-ergy. Promoting a culture where there was power and success in teamwork. If you have ever seen geese flying, it is an amazing sight. When you see geese flying through the air like that, you probably looked up and thought they flew that way because, hey, that looks bitchin'. No, it has nothing to do with it at all. They actually fly that way because they draft off of each other. Now, for those of you who have ever watched NASCAR, you see how they follow each other around the track and you can't figure out why they're not passing each other more? That's what it's all about. When geese fly in this formation, they fly 74% more efficient. If one of the geese tries to sneak out of that and tries to pass everybody in hot dog, they can't do it. They'll get blown back. They tend to come right back into it. So as you watch geese fly, they'll drift a little bit as you watch them go, but they know where the resistance is least, and their wings will just be like very, very easy flight. If you ever see one of these geese that gets tired or gets injured, watch if it goes to the ground. It will not go alone. One will take off, but two more will follow it. They go down in threes because they know that if that one goose gets away from the rest of the flock, it won't be able to catch up. Great teamwork. I saw an amazing sight, too. This is last year. I've known this for years, but I saw a great example of it when I was at my sister's house on Lake Washington, and this flock was flying by. There was probably about 10 of them in it, and I saw two coming from behind trying to catch up. Now, the flock itself, their wings were just like this, just a beautiful sight. The two that were back here trying to catch up, they were just cranking. They were moving. But when they got up, right up into the back side of the flock, right about to here, the geese opened up, the two separated on both sides, and sucked the other two right in, and I could see their wings go immediately right at the same pace as everybody else. And it was the first time that I was actually able to see the amount of efficiency with which they fly. And the reason I bring this up is because you're a team. When you're in your environment, in your restaurant, you need to function as a team. If anybody in your organization decides they're going to be a hot dog or they're not going to participate in this culture, they need to feel resistance to that. They need to be brought back in so everybody can fly together. Leadership is a verb and not a noun. Leadership requires action. I'd like you to fill the word action. Because the speed of the pack will truly be determined by the speed of the leader. That is you in this room. If your people are going to change their behavior, it will happen because you allow it to happen, or you'll be involved in the process. And it's important to be a leader and not consider yourself a boss. Now, I don't know about you, but I have always hated the word boss. Anytime I got introduced as the boss, I felt like they were saying, he bosses me around all the time. He's a boss. I didn't like it. When my employees, during holiday events, they'd bring their significant other over to me and introduce me. They'd say, this is the boss. And it's like taking a knife in my heart. I just didn't like it. Now, I allow my employees to introduce me as the president, as the founder, as the owner, as their co-worker. I tried being introduced as their outstanding leader. No, they didn't go for it. Not even close. The boss inspires fear, and a leader inspires enthusiasm. Please fill in the words enthusiasm. That is our job. The boss says I, and the leader says we. The boss says go, and the leader says let's go. The boss says it's the company, and the leader says it's our company. Rethinking your role as a manager. Have you moved from being a manager to a leader and from a trainer to a coach? I would like you to put a star in the left-hand column next to this section. If you get anything, please get this, because this is a very important section that will separate you from the rest of the kingdom in terms of leadership. See, outstanding leaders don't ask, did my staff do what it was supposed to do today? An outstanding leader asks, did I do what I was supposed to do today to make sure that my staff did what it was supposed to do? Let me explain that. If there is failure in your restaurant, if an employee fails for any reason, how many of us today go up to the employee and start looking at that person as a problem and start attacking that person to try to find out why they did that wrong thing? The change in your culture should be that when you see failure, you should be able to walk away from it. And you should be able to ask yourself some questions. Your questions might be something as simplistic as, did I possibly not give that employee all the proper tools that they needed to perform that job? Did I not maybe give them all the proper training that they needed to get that job done? Maybe the day I gave it to them, I gave them most of it, probably 90% of it, but I was in a hurry that day. So maybe the 10% that I did not give them created this failure. Can I take any responsibility for that? Is there a possibility that I did not give them all the proper time that they needed? It might have been a task that might have taken 2-3 hours, and I told them they needed to have it done in an hour. Try to push them a little bit. So first of all, as great leaders, outstanding leaders, we can look at ourselves first and see if we can take any responsibility for that failure. And if we can, we need to apologize to that person and let them know that, John, I am so sorry. You know, I gave you all the tools you needed, but you know, when I walked out the door that day, I failed to give you a few bits of information more that might have made the difference between your success and failure. Therefore, I failed you, and I'm sorry for that. Watch the look in their eyes, though, about you being a new leader. They'll look at you with some brand new vision. Now, the next thing we do is, let's say we couldn't find anything that we can't accept any responsibility for. We're certain they had everything. Do we go after the employee yet? Of course not. We open up dialogue with the employee. We ask the employee the same questions. John, did I possibly not give you all the tools you need? Was there anything that you needed that you did not have? And if John says, no, I had everything, did I not properly give you all the training that you needed? John might say, no, you gave me everything. Did I not properly give you all the time that you needed? Did you not have enough time? He says, no, I had all the time. Then the employee automatically starts taking accountability for their actions. And it's not you pointing fingers at them. They know that there's fault to be had. The next line down is serve employees. See, a leader's role is to support employees and remove barriers. I'd like you to fill in the blanks. Remove barriers. Our job is to ask employees questions and ask them, you did not succeed today. Did anybody, myself, a coworker, or the company, put anything in your way to keep you from reaching your goal? Maybe we're going to learn something from that process. Fostering trust and freedom. Create an environment that eliminates fear. Please fill in the blank, fear. Keeps promises and fosters freedom to question and contribute. If you read that sentence or paragraph towards the bottom, it says, if you lead through fear, you will have little to respect. But if you lead through respect, you will have little to fear. Now, the next bullet point down is coach and share time. Allocate time and resources to coach employees to take on more responsibility and authority. Keep your employees enlightened. Please fill in the words, enlightened and educated. That's a matter of simply not giving them the mushroom treatment. For those of you who do not know what the mushroom treatment is, that's keeping your employees in the dark and feeding them BS. That is not the way to lead people. Let's go to the next section, which is credible leaders. Now, nationally, across the board, in all industries, what do employees perceive as a credible leader? Please fill the blanks. A credible leader is they do what they say they will do. They keep their promises and follow through on their commitments. The next bullet point is their actions. Their actions are consistent with the wishes, goals of the company. The next bullet point is they believe in the inherent self-worth of others. And they learn how to discover and communicate this to the people that they lead. The next bullet point is they are capable of making a difference in the lives of others. You are capable of improving the lives of the people around you. The next bullet point I would like you to put a star next to and fill in the blank with they admit their mistakes. They realize that attempting to hide mistakes is much more damaging and erodes credibility. By the way, how many of you have children of any age? Doesn't make a difference. How many have children in the room? Okay, great. You might understand this when you have a child out playing with a bunch of other kids. Child does something wrong. You don't realize it's your child, but something goes wrong, something gets broken, your child shows up, has this guilty look on their face, so you send them to their room. Go have timeout! Timeout's great. Now, you found out a half hour later when the neighbor lady comes over that it really wasn't your child that created the problem, that it was another child. And you've got this decision to make. You can be the parent that says, I'm not going to apologize to my kid, or you can be this outstanding parent that brings your child out and says, son, I am so sorry. I owe you a huge apology. I made a big mistake. I did not trust you. I did not believe you, and that was my mistake. I am so sorry for that. But watch the child's eyes again. Look into the child's eyes and look at the new respect they've got for their adult parent. And how good you feel. I don't know about you, but I feel good when I get the chance to apologize. I feel so good. I scream at my son daily just so I can, feel good. He's used to it. An apology, some of you may consider an apology to an employee. You might think, I would never do that. That's a sign of weakness. Trust me, it'll be one of the bigger strengths you ever have to be able to apologize to an employee if you can take some responsibility. The next bullet point down is, they arouse optimistic feelings and enable people to think positively about the potential for success. This is creating an environment that does not allow the words, I can't. This is also very much like parenting. Since my son was able to speak, I would never allow him to use the words, I can't. He would come home and say, Father, I can't do my homework. I'd say, is it challenging? Oh, yes. Is it difficult? Oh, yes. Can it be done? Well, maybe. I never let him say it. Of course, now he's taken full advantage of me, though. He comes home now at the age of 14 and says, Father, I'm finding myself exceedingly challenged by my homework. He still does it. He's learned how to play that, though. The next bullet point down, the last bullet point here, is they create a climate for learning characterized by trust and openness. The next section is comparing reactive leadership versus proactive leadership. If you are like most people, you probably have very little time in your day. You find yourself challenged because you go to work, you get 8 hours in, you finish, and you go, man, I didn't get anything done that I wanted to get done today. I had an agenda. It just went in the toilet. I was so busy dealing with customer problems or operational things or with employees, I just didn't get anything done today. Well, that's probably most of your life if you stop and analyze it. Being proactive, and you can fill in the top blank, by the way, the next blank down, is that a test of proactive leadership is the ability to recognize a problem before it becomes an emergency. Now, if you want to free up your life, if you want to give yourself more time in a day, this requires proactive thinking and changing your behavior from where you are today. An example might be, you've got some things, every single day you deal with them. They just kind of eat away at your day. They're things that are waste. They're not good uses of your time. They waste your time, and you know it. What I'd like you to consider is sitting down and making a list of these things that consume your day. I would like you in another column to put down about how much time these things consume on the average each day. I mean, some days it doesn't take any time. Some days 30 minutes. So on the average, maybe 15 minutes. It may look very much like this. So what you do is you create a list. You've got, let's say for example, we have 8 things that we can think of that consume our time. We put all 8 of them down there. In the time wasted per day, we put approximately how many minutes each day I deal with these things. And if I could get rid of them, man, what a beautiful thing. I'd have a lot more time. Your goal as a proactive leader is to simply take your time. During week number 1, use an entire week and just commit to yourself that you are going to get rid of one thing per week. Take thing number 1. It wastes 15 minutes. I think it's going to take about 3 hours for me to sit down at a table and create a new procedure or a new policy to make sure that that thing never comes back and haunts me again. Invest 3 hours during that week, boom, it's gone. The next week, you've gained 15 minutes of your life back. Thing number 2, eats 10 minutes of my day away. It's going to take me about an hour to sit down one morning and have a meeting and coach my employees so that they understand how to resolve this issue so it never happens again. 2 weeks down the line. When you get down to the 8th week, yeah, it took you 2 months. But after 8 weeks, you've now gained 120 minutes, 2 hours per day that you never had before, that you now have for the rest of your life, hopefully, and that's it. It took you 25 hours to do it. It was not painful. It happened over time. The problem is most of us don't respond this way. The majority of us say, oh, it'll be better tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow will be a better day. Oh, next week, things are going to lighten up for me. And we've been saying this stuff for years. Don't let it happen. This is how you can get rid of those things. Reactive leaders spend most of their time putting fires out. The result is you're constantly handling problems with no time to manage important daily tasks. Proactive leaders put systems in place. Ladies and gentlemen, the words systems. To prevent the fires. The result is you're not having to handle the same fires each day and you have more time for other tasks. Please accept the concept from me that people do not fail as much as systems do. If an employee in your restaurant fails, I ask you to look very carefully at what system you can put into place as a protective net to keep that person and other people from failing. That is also thinking proactively. I may have said it before, but it is absolutely insane to continue to do what we are doing today, but expect better results tomorrow. Something has to change in the way we do our business and the way we act today if you really want better results tomorrow. And that's why we talk about proactive leadership. Let's talk about another idea. When a fire flares up in your environment, are you the kind of leader that throws a bucket of gas on the fire? You ever work with anybody like that? You go to them with a problem and all of a sudden it got bigger? That's that. Or are you the kind of leader that throws a bucket of water on the fire where you quickly extinguish it? Now here's a question. Is the fire the cause of a problem or is it the effect of the problem? Give you an example. I had an employee that worked for me one time. Her name was Tabitha. She worked for me for about 4 years. Charming person. Wonderful employee. Everything. Her personality, her work quality, she was on time. Everything was fabulous. I would have killed to have 20 more Tabithas. Towards the end of her career, things changed. I started to see her behavior change. I started to see her just be a little bit more biting to people, including myself. Her quality of work started to go downhill. She stopped coming in on time. Finally, she stopped coming in at all. And so we came to heads, and I fired Tabitha. A couple of weeks after we both calmed down, I sat down, and I finally opened up dialogue with Tabitha. See, the problem was, while I saw Tabitha as a problem, I was looking at her as a problem and treating her as if she was a problem. Now, I had other problems going on in my office at the same time. I had other people that were popping up as problems, but she was a big one at that moment. After talking to her and actually opening up dialogue for the first time with her, I realized that she was really not the problem. I sat down with the other employees and I asked them what was going on, and they told me their story. Turns out, these people were not problems at all. They were simply symptoms to a greater problem in my organization. It was my vice president and general manager. I fired this person and moved them from my office, and everything came together, and everything's been perfect ever since. It was the very first lesson I had had that when you see things pop up in your restaurant, don't look at them initially as a problem. Maybe consider the concept that they are simply symptoms to a greater problem in the organization or in your restaurant. And you find that out by opening up dialogue with your employees. Please fill in the last bullet point for me. Maybe the poor morale is a symptom to an illness in the organization or the environment. How about delegating? See, if you're going to be an outstanding leader, you have to be a good delegator. For those of you who think that doing the job and doing everybody's job for them works for you, it won't. It'll stress you out. It'll kill you. You need to be a good delegator. But as a good delegator, you need to realize that even if you are good at delegating, you can never walk away and remove your responsibility. You are always going to be responsible for what gets done. Stress results, not details. Make it clear to your employees you're more concerned about the final outcome. Please fill in the blank, final outcome, than the day-to-day details. For those of you who have ever been micromanaged, it is a very painful experience. That means that you've got a supervisor standing over you, and they are trying to get you to do everything exactly their way. There's maybe a lot of ways to do it, but they really, really want it done their way. If their hand moves to the right, no, put your hand back in there. That is called being micromanaged. It is a very, very painful way to be an employee, and it also drains the leader's time as well. I just ask you to give employees some freedom. If they can get the job done their way, and there's no harm in it, allow them that freedom. Please do not try to micromanage people. Don't offer solutions to problems. When employees come to you with problems, they're looking for you to solve them. Please fill in the words, solve them. Please don't do it. This happens actually a lot more probably in your earlier stages when you first become a supervisor. Employees come to you and they ask you a question, and you want to try to demonstrate that you are the supervisor for a reason. You've got the expertise, so you give them the answer. You've just now started to create a grief for yourself, because every time that they have any question of any sort, they know if they come to you, boom, they got an easy answer. That means they don't have to research anything themselves. Now you've become the answer person. You will find that all of a sudden your day is shot. And sometimes it's not with the things, it's with the people. I highly recommend if anybody comes to you with a problem, turn around immediately before you ever answer and just ask them the question. If I was not here right now, how would you handle it? And chances are they are going to have the answer. Teach your people to think for themselves. For those of you who have ever heard the old saying, give them a fish and feed them for a day. Teach them how to fish and feed them for a lifetime. That's what coaching is all about. Coaching is making them so they can think for themselves and they can do their task themselves without having to bother you. The only downside to that is the employees might be sitting around one day talking and saying, have you noticed? I've been asking the manager a lot of questions lately and they don't know anything. They're dumber than a brick. It's okay, you got more lunchtime now. Turn questions around. If an employee comes to you with a problem, ask them for possible solutions. I already got that one, didn't I? No, I didn't. That's it. If they come with a question, ask for possible answers. That's what we just talked about as well. Give clear and realistic deadlines. If you don't give clear deadlines, employees won't feel accountable for the completion of the task. Keep a delegation log. When you delegate an assignment, write it down. Make sure you know what your employees are doing. Make sure you know what you've delegated. There's nothing worse when you've delegated 5 employees some responsibility for the week, and one of them comes to you on Wednesday and says, I almost got it done. And you go, what? And they go, the thing you gave me. And you go, what? You know, it sends the message that you really didn't care enough about it to begin with. How about follow-up? Request that employees come to you. You should not be responsible for chasing employees around, calling them at home. You need to have a schedule that says every Monday at this time, or when you come in, you report to me. Have a schedule so they report to you, and you're not chasing them. The next section is 10 ways to give constructive feedback. Now, this is simply no more than how do you step on your employees' shoes without ruining their shine. So we're going to talk about how to do that. The very first one there is start off by saying something nice. Now, I don't mean this to sound token. The reason you need to start off by saying something nice is you want to reduce their anxiety for the fear of their job. Because from an employee's standpoint, whenever you go to an employee and say, can I talk to you in the back room? That's never good news. Rarely. So when you tell an employee you want to talk to them out here and have a cup of coffee with them, make sure you let them know up front that, oh, no, we just want to talk about some coaching. You're a great employee. We just want to talk about some things that happened yesterday. Let them off the hook and let them know their job is not in jeopardy. Number 2, I would like to put an asterisk off next to number 2. This is another huge one. Identify the behavior You want to correct and direct your feedback at the action and not the person. I'll demonstrate that for you. The majority of the time when we want to coach people and we want to give them constructive feedback, the majority of the time, the way most of us word it, it comes across as a personal attack. We feel like we're being attacked. I'm going to ask you to think very cautiously about how you word constructive feedback. And I would like you to envision that the employee is holding off the side over here the issue that you want to talk to them about. So I would like you to envision that you can say, Brad, you're a great employee. You've been with me for a year now, and you're doing a fabulous job. However, I would like to talk to you about something that happened yesterday. Do you feel that? They're protected. They think that they're safe, and we're just going to talk about this thing out here. This takes time. This is not something that will come automatic to you. This is a matter of changing the way you think and changing your culture. All I do is ask you to take a deep breath before you're going to coach somebody on something constructive, something negative, and think about it before it comes out of your mouth. Just verbalize it in a way that they don't feel like you're being personally attacked. Because when you go to an employee and say, you, their response is, I don't think so. It's natural. And they'll reject the information. They'll shut their system down, and they're not going to hear most of the stuff coming at them because they feel like it's an attack. Number 3, make feedback specific. Please fill the words specific. Please do not use words like, you always miss deadlines. Use something specific like, you missed the June 9th deadline for your report, or whatever it is. I would like you to do me a favor and circle the word always in that sentence. You always, circle that word always. And right below that, write the word never in and circle the word never. These are 2 words. It is important that you remove these from your vocabulary if you're in a leadership role. Anytime you use these words when you're coaching employees, they will discount everything you say after those words. When you say you are always late, they know you're lying. They'll say to you, I'm not always late. Yeah, 90% maybe, but not always. So anytime you say never or you say you're always, that means that everything after that, they figure you're lying too. Because you lied about that. Number 4, be sure the behavior you're correcting can be changed. Number 5 is use I and we, please fill in those blanks, to stress that you want to work out the problem together. In other words, we have a problem, and I'd like to help you with it. I and we. That's changing our vocabulary just a little bit. Don't belabor the point. Make it short and sweet with no lectures. Offer to help the person correct the problem. As I just said, we seem to have a problem, but I'd like to help you with it. Don't set a tone of anger or sarcasm. Do not give feedback while angry. Wait 24 hours. Now, I want to make sure you're clear. If you're coaching an employee and you see something that is wrong and you need to correct it, that's okay. But if you see something that gets you angry, then please wait 24 hours. Because if you try to discuss something constructively with an employee when you're angry, the chances are it will not come out well. It will come out as an attack. If you're putting your feedback in writing, write it down and let it sit overnight. Read it the next day and make sure you still feel the same way. Especially if you're talking about disciplinary action. Don't write a disciplinary note and then give it to them right away. Let it sit overnight, and the next day, about 90% of the time, you'll probably rewrite it and soften it a little bit with the same points. Being a great leader, you cannot take every wave head on. It's like standing in the surf and being hit by every single wave. It'll wear you out. It'll beat you up. There's some things that are going to happen in your restaurant that it's simply just worth ducking and letting it go over your head. It's just not worth it. It might be a great employee. If one day has a bad hair day and you know that's not normal, there's no sense going after them over it. It's just not worth it. You'll wear yourself out. Let's talk about some manager styles. There's 4 major styles. One is the leader, one is a boss, one is a friend, and one is a follower. Now, I'm not going to cover all 4. But I would like to cover the characteristics that we would like to see you possess. And that is of the leader. The characteristics are, you have the clarity of the organization or the team. You are very clear about what the organization is trying to achieve. You have purpose, goals, and direction. When you walk into the restaurant, you know what you're trying to do every single day. You've got a direction. You're going after it. You are self-confident. You work through people to solve problems. The worst thing that can happen in your environment is office politics. Office politics get started very easily. If I have a problem with this person here, I'll go tell everybody else about how bad this person is because I want support. I want everybody to feel that I'm right, or I want to try to get them thinking that way because that's support. So that is called office politics because I get other people involved in my problems with this person here. I highly recommend that if you have two people in your work environment that are button heads, if they come to you and start whining to you, tell them to go back and talk to the person themselves. Anytime you put yourself in the middle of a situation like that, you're toast. Allow employees to work it together. In my office, anytime any two employees are going at each other, I always give them the credit card and tell them to go to lunch. And when they come back, they always say, oh, it's just a misperception. However, I have noticed my car is being used a lot lately for problems. How about values-driven? What has that got to do with anything? I didn't even realize how important it was for the employees to understand my value system. In my company, I had what's called a PQ&I test done. I had a consultant come in, and they evaluated my employees. They gave them this test, and what the whole idea was is it was to test how the employees felt about their value system compared to the value system of the company. It came out, the results came back, the employees said, here's their value system, and here was the company's down here. I thought, where did they get that at? The consultant said, you need to sit down and tell them your value system. They need to understand more about you. They need to know more about you. I said, I can't believe that's going to do anything. And they said, trust us. I sat my 35 employees down, and I told them what my value systems were very easily. I said, you will never, ever lie to each other. You will never lie to a client. Even if it's to cover me up or to help me out, never lie to me. Never lie to me or for me. Don't lie to each other. Don't lie to the shoppers. You will never lie in this organization. Integrity is the most important thing to me. The second thing is I leave the office every day at 3 o'clock because my son is the most important thing to me. I'm his soccer coach. I'm his baseball coach. I'm his ski instructor. He means more to me than anything. And I will leave here when I have anything going on. If you have a child that has a ballet recital at noon tomorrow, I want you out of here. That stuff is important to me. I just laid it very, very clearly out my value system to my employees. We took the PQ&I about 60 days later, and boom, par. Absolutely par. And it's changed the environment, the work environment, dramatically because they understood more about my value system. They weren't protecting me. It lightened up my organization dramatically. So do your employees really understand more about you? Being decisive. Are you the kind of person that can make decisive decisions? Do you build people? See, there's two different types of leaders. One is when you hire a new employee and you see them rising up in the ranks really quickly, some of you out here might look at that person and go, whoa, what a threat. This person could have taken over my job. This looks serious. And then we try to suppress the person. There's also the kind of leader that says, wow, this person's good. I could use 10 more of them. Because these people can help catapult me to the next level. That's what an outstanding leader thinks. They build people. They do not fear anybody. They have respect for balanced lives. As I mentioned earlier, people have other lives outside of work. We have to respect that. You're energetic. You're highly intuitive. You don't need reports. You can feel when your staffing is right. You know when your customer service is good. You can just feel it. And you lead by example, which is obviously the most important thing. You don't have to do this now, but I would highly recommend to you that you sit down one evening with a glass of Chardonnay and take a look at all of these characteristics, and I'd like you to take and put a check mark next to the characteristics that you possess. Now, that does not mean that if back in 1967 you were decisive, you get to check the box. It needs to be something you possess on a regular basis. The areas that you do not possess, please seek from somebody above you some coaching on those areas and try to fulfill those. Personal goals, personal action plan. Let's move on to a page called philosophy. See, outstanding leaders, they aren't paid to make the popular decision. Please fill in the blank. Popular. They are paid to make the right decision. These are going to be in conflict. If you are in a leadership role for any length of time, these two things are going to butt heads. You're going to have to make some decisions, and you're going to say, man, this is not going to be a pretty thing. Employees are not going to like this. But you have to be able to stand in front of the employees, look them in the eyes, and say, you know what, this is the right thing for our company. This may not be popular, but it's the right thing for our organization. And you have to make those kind of decisions. How about defining boundaries? Defining boundaries for our employees. Being an outstanding leader is like being a good parent. You don't try to control their every move, but you do want to provide them with very clear boundaries. What I mean by that, for those of you who are parents, understand this. We take and we draw this circle in the sand for our children. And we tell our children, this is where Mommy and Daddy want you to stay because this is very safe. This is a nice area. But you know what kids are like. You know they're going to go over to the edge over here and they're going to step over there, they're going to look at you and see if you're paying attention, right? And if you don't respond, they're going to come over here, they're going to step out over here, and they're going to look at you to see if you respond. And if you don't respond, they're out here going, hey, 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 hey. And then all of a sudden one day when you want them back in there again, you go, get back in there. They go, hey, where were you the last 2 weeks? That was all over. This is the same thing with employees. When you give employees boundaries, when you tell them, I want these 5 things done. Every single customer, every single time, those 5 things done, stick to it. Keep those very clearly defined. If you allow the employees to jump out and not do these things, and they know you can see they're not doing them, and you think you're going to be this, this free-flowing manager that allows them some flexibility, you're killing them. Please fill in the blank. Boundaries that are not clearly defined are painful. It is much easier to set up clear boundaries and keep them there than it is to allow them the freedom. It's not good for them, and it certainly isn't good for you, nor good for the customer. Behavior change. See, customer service coaching primarily does seek behavior change. You're asking your employees to change. And again, this is not about aptitude. We're asking about attitude change. But you must focus your coaching skills more on the why do it. Please fill in the blank for me. It's the why should they do it. They're going to want to know why. And employees may not change their behavior unless they see a need for it. How about culture change? Employees need to be told, and you need to incorporate this word more into your vocabulary, the word culture. Because there are programs. Every corporation has programs. Like I talked about with Safeway earlier. They have sales programs, they have customer service programs, they have all these programs, and most employees perceive that one program gets replaced by another one. When a new program comes along, it replaces the other one. That's the way people think. That's why we need to begin using the word culture and let the employees know that the culture of our restaurant is going to be that we're going to exceed people's expectations. This isn't a program. This isn't something that's going to be going away. It is here. It's ingrained with every ounce of our fabric. When I see an organizational chart, a lot of organizations have organizational charts. This is not an unusual organizational chart. They have quality service as a department within the corporation. But when I see a corporation that has a culture of giving outstanding service, this is what I see. Quality service engulfs the entire organization. The office, the call centers, every aspect of the entire organization. Include the people back in the fry area, everybody is engulfed in this idea of this culture of giving outstanding service. The second line down, I'd like you to fill in the blank for me. You must also create an environment. Please fill in the words, an environment where this culture can exist. Do not stifle the employees' creativity or ingenuity. If they try to reach out and try some new things, allow them a little bit of freedom, though, to try some new things if it exceeds the customer's expectations. 100% buy-in. You are only as strong as your weakest link, and if you have one employee in your organization that is not subscribed to this, they might be in the wrong organization. Many of you do it. You have employees working for you that probably shouldn't be. Sometimes just out of hiring desperacy, we hire people that we don't want, but we're just short. We need them. But really realize that culture will not exist unless everybody subscribes to it. Fill in the last blank for me. The culture must be non-negotiable. That's another word I would like you to inject in your vocabulary. It is the words non-negotiable. When you talk to employees about the 5 things that I want you to do, these are non-negotiable standards. We're not going to discuss them. They will be done. 100% of the time, every single customer, every single time. Coaching. I'm in an unfortunate position because I will not be a coach. In this environment, I'm a teacher. I throw information out to you. It's a one-time event, and I hope you take information back and utilize it. You are in a situation to be a coach. Coaching is, and you please fill in the blanks for me, continuous, and it is consistent. Coaching never stops. Look at baseball. Look at a batting coach. When Ken Griffey Jr. is having batting problems and he gets up to the plate to swing, the batting coach sees problems. The batting coach sits down with Ken. The batting coach does just not go to Ken. He doesn't go there and say, Ken, your hitting stinks. He knows that. What he needs is specific information about how to change his behavior. What Ken is looking for from a batting coach is, okay, spread your feet 2 inches further out, bring your elbow up a little bit, turn your head a little bit. Coaching is we're giving bits of information to an employee that will change their behavior. An example, if you have an employee that works at the register, and you notice that they're not staring the employees or the customer in the eye, they're not giving good eye contact, they're staring down at the tray, they're staring everywhere else but at the customer, and you want to try to help them. Well, going to that person and just telling them, boy, you got to give better eye contact, that doesn't do any good. What they need to hear is they need something that's going to change their behavior. What I would do is I would tell that employee, John, the employee or customers really feel an emotional bond with us when we give them good eye contact. It's something that makes them feel more important. We need to begin doing it, and I want to help you out a little bit. What I want you to do is every customer that walks forward, that comes to you, I want you to look and see if you can tell the color of their eyes. Look in their eyes and see if you can pick out the color. Now, don't say it out loud. That might sound a little darky. Blue, brown, green. But get the color of their eye. Because the amount of time that it takes to see the color of someone's eyes, that's the amount of time it takes to create a little bit of an attachment to that person. Now, twice during the daytime, during your next shift, your 4-hour shift, probably a couple times, I'm going to come up behind you when it's slow. And I'm going to ask you what the color of the eyes were of the person that just left. And if you can get both of them right, I'll buy you a bag of Oreos tomorrow because I know you love Oreos. Or I'll take you to lunch or whatever. But that's what a coach does. It gives them very specific tools and information with which to help them succeed. If you ever heard of a gentleman named R.J. Wrigley, Mr. Wrigley was the founder of Wrigley Chewing Gum. And there's a story about him on an airplane one time. The gentleman sitting next to him says, Mr. Wrigley, I don't understand it. He says, your name is just predominant in the chewing gum industry. You own the business. He says, I don't understand. If you're already number one, why do you continue to advertise? And he says, well, he says, for the same reason that the pilot of this airplane keeps the engines running once we're in the air. You can't stop. It's not a race to a score. If you are the best, you can't stop. You have to continually coach employees. It will never stop. So never ever think that there's an end to this path. It is consistent. It is ongoing. The next area, which is coaching tools. Now, we are going to sit down. We are going to coach employees. Do we have the proper tools to do it? People have about 3 different types of learning skills, approximately, different ways to take in information. And I want to cover those with you. The first one is there are visual learners. You have some employees that learn best visually. These people like to think in pictures. Please fill in the word pictures. These are the people you can recognize them because when you ask them a question, they look up over your head like this. It's because they're waiting for a picture to form. They don't like phones as much as other people. They're the ones that are not going to race you to the telephone. They like things written down. They love notes. They love paperwork. They love to see things in writing. They may not have a lot of expression in their voices. They may tend to have a little bit more flat or monotone voice. They must think before they talk. you might consider them really a slow person. But what they're doing is, again, they're waiting for the picture to form before they respond to you. They want to see it clearly. And when they give feedback, they may use language like, you know what? I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's because they can. It's right over your head. The distance between the two parties, when you walk up to this person to talk to them, the distance that they're going to leave between you is about 4 to 5 feet. They're the ones that are going to stand back a little bit. If you try to squeeze them, they'll step back. They want to see all of you. They exhibit very little eye movement. They'll tend to keep their eyes a little bit more focused during your conversations, because if their eyes move around too much, they lose the photograph. They lose the picture. The best ways to coach these people is using diagrams, pictures, bullet points. The other learner is an auditory learner. These people like to hear things spoken. Please fill in the blank. They like to hear things spoken. Oh, and they love phones. They will race you, and they will win. That does not mean that all teenage girls are auditory learners, however. That's just being a teenager. They have a tendency to interrupt. They are the ones that before you finish your sentence, they're talking right over the back of yours. That may help define it for some of you. They talk to think. They're the ones that might be standing over there in the corner talking to themselves, and you think they're nuts. They might be, but they're also auditory learners. And when they give feedback, they might use words like, boy, you know, that sounds good to me. Yeah, that sounds good. Because it does. The distance between these two parties, when you go up to talk to them or they come to talk to you, they'll stand about a foot away from you. They don't need to see you. They just want to see your mouth. They exhibit lots of eye movement because they're face-to-face with you, and they really don't want to see your face that much anyhow, so their eyes move around quite a bit. They have no picture to sustain. The best ways to coach these people is simply verbally. You can just talk to them. They're just like a sponge. The last learning style is kinesthetic, or you may hear it called kinetic. They wear their feelings. They're a real touchy-feely group. They come up to talk to you, and they hang on to you, and they touch you. Know them? They also deal with the emotion of movement. They like movement. They might get side by side, and they'll use words like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I feel that. It's because they can. They're hanging on to you. They learn by hands-on coaching. Please fill in the blanks. They learn by hands-on coaching. The best way to help these people out is by role-playing or some movement. Now, here's your options. If you've got employees that work underneath you, 5 employees underneath of you, you're going to want to find out before you sit down to coach them, if you want to be an outstanding leader, you better figure out which learning style they are, because they're not all going to accept it. If you have someone that is a real visual learner and you try to just speak to them out, they might not get the whole thing. They might need something visual, a brochure, maybe a procedure manual or something to stare at. That's how you help your people. Now, you might know just by reading this who some of your people are. But if you don't know, you might just even keep a list. You know, Bob, and give him this list. Give him this piece of paper, photocopy it, hand it to him and say, tell me, which learner are you? Just help me out. And keep a list. Bob, visual. Jane, auditory. Keep a list. When you need to do some coaching, go look at it and say, Jane, auditory. Oh, good. I can just talk to her. And that's the way she learns best. This is what removes you from not just being a supervisor. It takes you into being an outstanding leader of people and a great coach. Now, in my situation, I have got this room full of people that I have to try to get to all of the learning styles. It's challenging when you have a group of people like this. What is it that you think that I've done to try to take care of the visual learners? The handout, absolutely. Yeah, you've got something to look at and read. What else? Yeah, PowerPoint presentation. So those are a couple things that kind of keep you spiked every so often so you don't doze off. How about the auditory learners? What do you think I do for the auditory learners? Simply talk, but you'll see my voice inflection. This is to keep you from falling asleep as well. So I use a lot of voice inflection, and I inject humor every so often to try to spike you. What do you think I do with the kinesthetic learner? Yeah? Fill in the blanks. Yes, very good. I knew all these answers before I got here, by the way, folks. I could have filled them in for you. But it's to keep you active in the learning process. What else do I do? Walking back and forth. Yeah, I don't have to go to the bathroom, believe it or not. Yeah, I do this because I'm trying to keep you entertained. For those of you who have ever sat and watched somebody stand behind a podium for 2 hours and give a seminar, you know, man, it's tough. So that's when you see people doing these things. That's what it's all about, to try to reach everybody. How about you don't say? Sometimes your actions speak louder than words. Be aware of the message you send your employees with your body language. I need to steal a chair here real quick. Let's just say you have an employee that comes to you and says, Brad, I have got a horrible problem. Can I talk to you about it? And you go, oh, yeah. And then you sit there and you listen to them when you got your leg over here bouncing as they're talking to you. What message do you see that this has? Yeah, impatience, lack of interest, urgency. It just basically says, nice story, but don't give a rip. Yeah. Hand on the telephone. Now, I was guilty of this one. I had an employee that just busted in my office. He's about probably 275 pounds, big guy. He just busts through my office door, almost scares me, sits down in my chair in front of my desk, and starts talking to me about things when I've got a lot of things to do. He doesn't ask permission to do so. I found myself with my hand on my telephone. I would go right up to my hand on the telephone. I was sitting there talking to him one day. I looked over and I thought, what the heck's that doing over there? I don't have to make a call. But I finally realized I was trying to get him to see that I got things to do. I got a call to make right here. I found myself doing it without even thinking about it. Raising an eyebrow. So you might have a good friend come to you and say, I swear I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Yeah, that might show disbelief, questioning, or surprise. Nodding your head. Now, nodding your head's a cool thing. See, when you're nodding your head, you know, you're telling the person you're right with them on the story. So you have that employee come in and say, oh, I got a horrible problem, Brad. And you go, oh, sure, tell me about it. And you got your head nodding like this. You're listening to that story. See the head? It says, I am all over this story. I am right with you. Now, inside, you might be saying to yourself, boy, I don't have time for this crap. But this head, I'm telling you, yeah. Leaning forward. Now, whether you're seated or whether you're standing, leaning forward does have some different signs to it. If you're sitting in your chair talking to an employee like this has a different visual message than this. It's very easy to see. This says, I'm interested in you, and this one kind of says, 10-hour day. Looking away. When your cashiers are working with customers, make sure that during the time that they are face-to-face with that person, that they're keeping their attention on that person. You know, looking over their head or looking at the other people behind them, that just drives us absolutely nuts. And if you're out front, you're working with someone, and you see something, a security concern or whatever else it is, don't keep looking around. Excuse yourself from the person. It's better to do that and remove yourself totally and deal with it than to sit there and look over this person's head. It drives them crazy. Remaining silent. Now, remaining silent is a very powerful motivator. Remaining silent is good news. Even to take your employees monthly or quarterly and sit them down and just say, tell me how things are going around here. What do you think we can do to improve the place? And say nothing else. Just absolutely shut up and just listen to them. You know, again, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. If we could just use them that way and listen twice as much as speak, it's a big motivating effect. This is true, too, when customers come in and customers are complaining about something. Again, let them just listen. Let them get it out of themselves. Crossing the arms on the chest. This is rarely good news when anybody comes over to you like this. This is just not good news most of the time. This is a defensive mechanism. This means that they're putting up a barrier. It's an invisible barrier, obviously, but it's a barrier between you and them. They have some anxiety, and this is a sign right here. They're not going to let you get to them. So if you have a customer that comes in or an employee and their arms are folded like this, as you do some of the things we just talked about, watch the arms. If they come down, that means that you've dropped that barrier. And some of it can just come from simply just listening or leaning forward, nodding your head, some of these things we just talked about. Slouching shoulders. Watch your posture while you are in your restaurant. As you are in your restaurant, keep your energy up. Even if you are beat, keep your shoulders rolled back, keep your energy up, let them see that energy in you. Just take one time for an experiment, walk into your restaurant, and just do this. Try that. All of a sudden, you look around your restaurant, all the employees are going, oh, just like that. Widening of the eyes. Widening of the eyes is motivation, anxiety, interest, or it could be a holdup. Here are some of the top motivators for employees. The number one motivator still is, after about 20-something years, recognition. Simply recognize an employee for doing something good. An employee would rather have some praise a few times per week or once a day than they would a 25 or 50 cent an hour raise. It means more to them. The employees will tell you, no, I want money. Not true. Non-cash awards. Non-cash awards can be gift certificates. It can be a half a day off or a couple hours off, some free time. It can mean Microsoft stock. I mean, whatever you got around, throw it out there. Being listened to. Again, a very big motivator. Just sitting down with employees and saying, just tell me what's going on. Tell me how you feel about things. And letting them just speak. Big motivator. Top D motivators. Office politics. It'll kill you. We talked about that. Don't get in the middle of it. Let them work it out together. Unclear expectations. Hypocrisy and being taken for granted. Reasons why employees leave companies. Well, 34% is from limited recognition or praise. Reinforces what we just learned earlier. 29% is compensation in some form. 13% limited authority. 9% personal conflicts. And it is 16% other. Now, here's top qualities of an outstanding employee. Hold these things up to yourself and hold them up to your employees and find out how do they stand up. You have a positive attitude? Are you enthusiastic? Are you determined, motivated, confident, optimistic, dedicated, happy? Are you a good listener? And are you patient? And the best hiring practices are still, bar none, hire the smile and train the skill. You cannot train people to smile. The last page is on action. What can we do tomorrow that we did not do today? What are some of the tools that we can put into place to make some behavior change occur? These are just ideas. The first one is a personal action plan. See, few of us like being told what to do, and very few of us obviously like being dictated to. I'd like you to fill in the word dictated. We don't like being dictated and told what to do. As I said earlier, when you tell an employee, I want you to do this, they go, I don't think so. That is just the way we are. What I'd like you to think about is maybe sitting an employee down and saying, what are some of the things that you can do to begin to exceed customers' expectations? And what can you do to improve your performance? And ask them about the things that they would do to change and see what they can come up with. And in order to do that, if they do that, and they do their own things, they've now created their own destiny. And change will occur much faster. I'd like you to go the 4 lines down. Far right-hand blank there, 4 lines down, right side, it says the employee has now created their own destiny. And they'll feel more responsible and more accountable about making the change occur. Here's the 3 questions I would like your employees to ask themselves. They should ask themselves, what should I start doing? What should I start doing? Fill in the blank. What can I start doing tomorrow that I did not do today? What should I keep doing? There are some things I'm doing now that are really working. I want to keep doing them. The last one is, what should I stop doing? What are the things that aren't working? You can do an action plan monthly, you can do it quarterly, you can do it anytime you want. In my office, before we do any reviews, we always have the employee turn in a personal action plan first. So we get to see what they're looking at in terms of change, and we incorporate that into their reviews. By the way, there can be more than one thing for each of these. So what should I start doing? Somebody might think of 3 things. Great. When it comes to what should I keep doing, there might only be 1. What should I stop doing? There might be 2. Whatever. Allow them the freedom to pick ththose things. And then you ask the employee, when they've got it all filled out, ask them, how long is this going to take to initiate? When can you start? And they'll say, now? Great. It'll happen much faster that way than if you try to mandate it. Mentoring. Now, mentoring is not new. I'm not trying to paint it as a new theory. But I would like you to understand the reason why. The reason for mentoring is very simple. When you hire a new employee to come into your environment, it is human nature for employees to come into a new work environment and seek out people much like themselves. They will find the smoker, if they're a smoker, they'll find the person closest to them. That is not always good news for you. I would highly like to recommend that when you hire a new employee, if they are going to be working at the register, I would recommend that you take them over and say, John, I want to introduce you to Mary. Mary's going to be your mentor for the next few months during your training, because this is the person that we hold at highest esteem. Now there's absolutely no problems about understanding who that person should be like. It is very clear that you want to be just like this. You want 20 more people like that. That's the reason for mentoring. Seeking the wow factor. You might maybe on a monthly basis, if you have monthly meetings, maybe hand out 3x5 note cards to the employees and ask them to write down on that note card an idea. Maybe even give them a few days to think about it. But think of an idea, something that they can do that might exceed people's expectations, that might wow the customer. Maybe it's not even for their job. Maybe they're a cashier, or maybe they've got an idea for some other position in the restaurant. Have them come up with some ideas and see if you can utilize and attempt to try some of these. Now, you have to let them know up front that not all of these ideas will be used or tested. But you want them to try a few of them, try to find something new that you've never done before. The 4th line down is a blank. You want innovation. Please fill the word innovation. How about a weekly praise list? You might take, if you've got, again, 5 employees that work underneath of you, you might take a piece of paper and write their names down on this piece of paper. Maybe even photocopy it maybe 10 times to give you 10 weeks' worth. But during the next week, Monday through Sunday or whatever your work week is, make sure that you get to praise each one of these people for something. What it will do is it will force you or your supervisors to keep their heads up more, looking around and trying to catch the employees doing something good. Because, again, praise will change behavior. I don't know if you ever measured it or not, but there's only an 18-inch difference between a kick in the butt and a pat in the back. Not a big distance, but it's a big difference in how we motivate people. I'd like you to fill in the next line, which is praise breeds change. Praise breeds change. I think that if you praise people, they will change their behavior much faster. And that's what this does. It allows us the opportunity to give praise to these people and make sure that everybody gets a little bit. Praise specific behavior or action. Not just thanks for the good job. When the employee walks out at the end of the day and you go, hey, good job today, you might confuse them. You might be saying, well, what's so good about my day? Till's $40 short, I got yelled at 3 times, dropped 2 trays. That was not a real bonus day in my eyes. They want to know something very specific. They want to know, John, today you had that angry customer around noon today. Man, you handled that beautifully. That was a piece of work. I would highly recommend praising an employee around other employees so the other employees can hear it. So the other employees go, wow, is that what it takes to get praise around here? I can do that. How about don't hit and run, thank you. Take time to sit with the employees, or take some time, walk over to the side, look out in the eyes, and take some time to really give them some sincere thank yous and some praise. So just make sure that at the end of your work week, if your praise list has 5 people on it or 10 people on it in total, and you have not done one praise for the entire week, do not run through the restaurant going, hey, good job, good job, good job, outstanding! No. And do not praise ordinary performance. They won't be driven to do better. Weekly thank you notes. You might even consider just getting a small box of Hallmark cards, just some little stack of cards, put them in your desk drawer. It's amazing what that does when an employee thinks you took the time. You saw them do something. You saw them carry a tray out for a senior citizen. They opened a door for a senior citizen. They did something that you went, wow, that was really neat. And you took the time to go back and just write it into a small card and give that to them. Man, that is powerful. They do not forget those kind of things. Please fill in the blank. Each week you should pick an employee who has stepped outside the box and is trying new things to better themselves and the company. That is worth a card. And as Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, you do not lead by hitting people over the head. That is assault, not leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very, very much for taking this much time today. I appreciate it very much.